Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Popcorn Square podcast. I am your host, Neff, joined with
Kage
and
Buttons.
All right, so we're going to be talking about our expectations for Quiet Place Day One. Guys, you know we've talked about this film. We've kind of speculated on what's going to happen with this film multiple times on this podcast, and I've talked about it on the weekly multiple times. We are very excited for this film. It comes out next weekend. I believe that would be June 28th. So, yeah, I think we're all excited at this table for this film. As far as the budget goes for this film, not 100% sure what the budget is. Buttons, do we have any research on that budget?
Actually, oh no, I'm sorry.
We do have the box office results for Quiet Place 1 and 2, but I want to see budget. I want to say the budget for this is going to be between $100 million and maybe 120. You know, we do have CG with the aliens and stuff like that. And guys, if you're not familiar with the Quiet Place film, go watch that. We're not going to recap 1 and 2. I think we've kind of talked about it a lot on this podcast. Go watch A Quiet Place. It's one of the better original alien films. It's a new spin on alien invasion films. We've seen alien invasions throughout cinema for a long time, but this is a different look at it, and I think this film really stands on its own, and 1 and 2 are very good films. We have the third one, which is really going to be a prequel to the events of Quiet Place 1 and 2. So go watch those, guys, so you kind of have some information going into this film if you're excited about it. If you're not excited about the film, you should get excited about it. This is going to be a very good film. I hope it does perform well. Like I said, I think the budget's going to be between maybe $120 million. This movie's going to have to do a 3X, $360 to $400 million to be successful, in my opinion. I was talking to Buttons offline about this. I just have a weird feeling with the climate right now and movies that even are high quality and have followings, that doesn't necessarily translate to a big box office. I have a strange feeling that this film might underperform. Do I want it to underperform? No. But I think the climate we're in with films not doing as well as we anticipate them to do, and the fact that this is a film that I would say targets adults more, I think it may suffer, especially with the competition that we do have with the film like Inside Out 2. You know, we do have Despicable Me 4 coming up. So I think people are kind of really judging where they're going to spend their money. And like I said, this is a film, I find it to target an older audience personally. So it's one of those. But I'm very excited about it. A lot of great actors in this film. I want to see how it connects to the events of the first film. There are some people that were in the second film that are in this film. We have Lupita Nyong'o in there. She's going to be starring in that. There's a pretty solid cast. We'll probably go into that a little later. But like I said, very excited for this film. Comes out next Friday. Everybody at this table is excited. I'm going to pass the ball to Kage. I want to hear what he thinks about this. I want to hear what he thinks the budget is, and then I want to hear what he thinks the box office is, and then we'll pass it off to Buttons to talk about the box office of the first two films and see if this one can stack up.
Well, real quick before you move on to the, I'm just gonna say I did not find anything as far as production budget for the film, so we are just kind of spitballing what we think that they spent.
Yeah.
The first one, 17 million. The second one was about 64 million budget. So this being the third one. And being more of a prequel versus a sequel, those are the numbers that we're looking at, but nothing officially on what the production budget was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from my records, just like Button said, 17 mil, 64 for Quiet Place 2. I feel like the budget is going to be higher on this one, mainly because, from what we can tell in the trailer, it's shot in a city, which means more destruction, which means more city. Because like if it was shot out in the boonies in a farm or something, obviously it'd be a lower budget. But now you're in a city. This is where you have, I don't know how many extras running around, and it's all out in the open. It's not people killed in the shadows here and there. You have survivors in the first two films. Like, this is a full-blown city, so much larger budget on that.
Good
alone.
point.
That location, I think that setting is what's going to be where your budget is. You're going to have, I would imagine, flipping cars, because these things are huge.
Buildings coming down.
Sure. Well, they crawl on buildings.
Right.
Look, the average size of a person, this thing is about the size of an SUV.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they come in herds, and they're very, very pissed when they hear noise. So yeah, big. It's got to be a big budget. I mean, if Quiet Place 2 had 64 mil, I would probably bet maybe 100.
I think that's fair.
100, and that I feel like that might even be low. On the other hand, box office wise, the first one had a box office of 340 mil. Two had 297 mil, so roughly about the same. I would imagine the box office is probably going to be maybe the same or a little bit less, just because of the competition that it has. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, we're hoping it does well, man.
Hoping
These
it
good
does
movies
well.
have to do well, because the more that we have good movies perform well, the more good movies you'll get, and it will give the studios confidence to push these movies out. If they put these movies out, it doesn't matter what the quality is, because we're in a business of making money, right? So it doesn't matter if the movie's good. Furiosa was good. It didn't make money. So when they see stuff like that, they're going to be hesitant to go put $150 million into a movie, even if it's solid, because they're like, are we going to get our return on investment back? So really hoping this movie does well, and very excited for the story of this movie.
Yes.
I may be more excited about the story of this movie rather than any other Quiet Place, other than 2, because I was really excited to see Quiet Place 1 and 2, the transition to what happened after the events of the first one. The way the first Quiet Place ends, it was really interesting, and it had me really curious on what was going to happen in the second one. But I'm extremely curious about this prequel film. I want to see the connection.
Yes. No, I agree with you 100%, Neff. There's I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. I love a good origin story. When we got these post-apocalypse movies, you're just kind of dropped right in the mix. And this is a very unique one. You know what I mean? We've had post-apocalyptic alien movies. Wow, aliens that don't do well with sound, and making a sound will kill you. Yeah. Yes. Let's get a remake of that. Hey, I'd watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. With that, what was it? There was a whole bunch of cameo characters.
Yeah, that movie was
and like
crazy. Yeah, that
Jack
had-
Nicholson was. Everybody was
Right.
in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, I'm really interested to see this in a movie, a franchise that's all about being quiet, set in New York.
One of the loudest cities.
One of the loudest cities
That's
that
gonna be
never
awesome.
sleeps. So it's just like, I can't wait.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
go. Let's go. I want to see all hell break loose. I want to see God, that sounds dark. I want to see the destruction of humanity, because humanity is reduced to living in bunkers, being quiet. Everybody's like hush, leave, and there's no such thing as a human settlement. You know what I mean? In the Quiet Place universe. So, what happens when you introduce aliens that don't like sound to the loudest,
To that environment.
to this environment? Let's go.
Wow.
I'm
Buttons,
ready.
what are you thinking about all this?
All right, so one of the things that, that we've talked about before about these movies is the fact that you have John Krasinski, who, acted, directed, and, made the first one. And it was just kind of like hey, this is my pet project. I have this idea. Let's get it funded. Let's get it made. Again, it was an $8 million budget. And they were genuinely shocked, surprised, whatever. They were pleasantly surprised that it was as successful as it was, and especially on such a low budget. Now, for the second one, they were more ambitious. They gave it a larger budget. They were like, hey, this movie did great. Let's expound on this. And again, John Krasinski was the director and the writer. Obviously, he couldn't act in it because he died in the first one. Spoiler alert for all you guys who haven't seen it. He's dead. Get over it. But anyway, this one, however, while he is a producer, he is not actually tied to it as the director, and I'm sure he did not write it. He's more of like a side.
Entity.
character, yeah, like a reference. So, you know, whenever they see like, oh, inspired by characters created by, you know, so it's going to be kind of one of those things that'll be interesting because he doesn't have a big part in it like he did the first two. I don't know if that's good or bad. It'll be interesting to kind of see, you know, we've seen other movies where they do sequels and they use different directors or they use different, you know, cast. They bring in different cast members to replace others. And sometimes it really trips up a movie and sometimes it's actually even better. You know, when you get a better director, you get, you know, a cast member that fits the character more. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes with the effect on this movie in particular. Kage, did you have something that you wanted to say? You're kind of looking at me with that.
Well,
eye.
no, something just kind of popped in my mind as we're talking about this, because you're absolutely right. The character is not going to be in this one. But, you know, the more I think about it in terms of, because it's a prequel, I think it's okay, because I think if we would have made a movie with the husband and mom, you know, the husband and wife before they had, because obviously it takes place before the kids are already young, I don't think they could be in the prequel. But also, too, in reality, this prequel came how many years after Quiet Place 2? It's been a while.
Yeah.
3 years,
Yeah,
4
3
years.
3 years?
So yeah, all those kids are much older now.
So I don't think you could swing that, but at the same time, because of the time gap, maybe it's okay. I think it's okay to
Well, I think
set
it's,
it in a different place and have
yeah,
different characters.
exactly. I think that's one of the things that, you know, we've talked about before when sequels get stagnant, and it could be because you're trying to find more filler for the
Right.
characters versus if you just do it from another perspective, which this is what this movie is doing. You're doing it from a completely different perspective, a different area or location, you know, new cast members. They do have a couple that they're going to try and tie in that were in the second Quiet Place, but for the most part, they don't have to worry about the, as Kage mentioned, like children aging out of roles or anything like that. So, or, you know, the actors being, somehow they need to age them down or something like that to make them look younger than they were in the movies that they were in later in the timeline. So that'll be interesting from my perspective to see how these go with, from a different person's perspective.
Right.
As well as from a different director's perspective on
Yeah,
this.
there's a lot of different things they're kind of toying with this film. So it's going to be very interesting, like you said, to see how it all comes together to make a final product. Yeah, very excited about this film. We're all excited here. Something else we are excited about, Smile 2. So let's talk about that a little more. We've all seen the trailer. Guys, if you have not seen the trailer for Smile 2, that film's coming out October 18th, I believe. That trailer is out now. If you are familiar with Smile, I'm sure you'll be very excited about that. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch that. If you haven't seen Smile and you like a nice original horror film with a different spin to it, I think that'll be a cool one to throw on your list before that second film comes out in October. Guys, what did you think about the trailer? I know Buttons just watched it. I want to hear her thoughts first. It's fresh in her mind, and then we'll ask Kage, and I'll go into it a little bit.
Yeah, so the first movie, not to throw too much out there for the audience that have not seen it yet, it's a psychological one, for sure. It's very heavy. You know, I think the first one even takes place, at least in part, in a psychiatric ward. So you have that element to it, which, you know, we've talked about all kinds of different horror movies on there as far as, you know, supernatural, psychological, monster, you know, there's multiple ones. If you like the psychological horror, like this is right up your alley, because these movies, they kind of get in your head and they make their own little, you know, nest to sit with you. And the second one, it's a different perspective, and, you know, we kind of talked about this off mic a little bit, how some of it seems maybe slightly predictable, where they're going to go with it, and probably you would have had to see the first one to pick it up in the second one to know where we're talking about like the predictability. But I am excited for it. I do think that the character choice for the main character is very interesting. I would not have gone that route, but I think they're making it bigger, making it more impactful, like the way that the character interacts with multiple different characters. So you can kind of see, again, with that predictability, if they're trying to make it more of a widespread, I guess you could maybe call it an epidemic, sanity, an insanity epidemic. So it definitely leans into that. Whereas the first one felt more intimate. It felt more like it was very closed off, only affecting a few people. And this one seems more like they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's huge now.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what I took from the trailer. They're really upping the ante on this one. High octane stuff here.
Right.
So I want to see what they do with the story. I feel like this allows the story to breathe a little, and you'll definitely, like what we said with A Quiet Place, you're seeing it from different perspectives now, and there's more people involved. I do like how it was kind of marginalized to maybe 3 to 4 people, right? And they
Right.
talked about this event going on in different places with other
Right.
people that didn't
But
survive
still
it.
small.
Right, but now this looks like it's going to be on a different scale. So yeah, I really did like the trailer. Very excited. Quality looks like it's up there. The acting looks like it's going to be decent. Like I said, like the first one, I don't expect the second one to be any different. I expect to see better results for the second one. I want to see if it can top the first one. But yeah, very excited. That trailer is awesome. Don't want to give away too much, guys, but yeah, if you're familiar with Smile, that's coming out in October of this year. Trailer's out right now. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. Kage, how did you feel about the trailer? I see you're watching it right now again.
Yeah, I just had to, I kind of had to refresh.
Yep.
I'm really excited for this one. As you guys know, for listening, I'm a big fan of horror movies, and Smile was just different, and I liked
Very
it. I
different.
liked it because it was different. Because I've seen curse movies, because that's basically what I'm going to call it. A curse movie. You see something, you get affected by the curse, and the movie features a character that's chasing this down, trying to figure out how to escape it or pass it on to somebody else. And it's very unique. People running around smiling, killing themselves. That's the gist of it. I highly recommend you go and see the first one, because I think that's what it is. You see somebody kill themselves or whatever, and it's horrific, and you're like,
Right.
oh my God, but you don't just deal with the trauma of, I just saw somebody kill themselves. Like, oh no, you're seeing something following you, and now, oh my God, I don't want to kill myself. Nobody wants to do that. But this movie, Smile 2, turns that on its head because it features a famous person now, a celebrity, I guess, a celebrity. So now it's like all in the open. What is going to happen? You know what I mean? If you have a celebrity die or see, like, that's huge. So I think that right there is them upping the ante on this. But either way, they've got me day one. I got it. I'm on board. Let's go.
Any thoughts on maybe doing a third film if this one performs well, guys?
Yeah, no, so, I mean, sure, it's not outside of the realm of believability that they would want to do another one if it performs well. I guess in the respect of this is like they've already gone from it being a small pool of people to now it's going to be potentially a huge pool of people. So I don't really know how much higher they could go other than making it political. And I don't really want to watch a political
Yeah, I think that
horror
would
movie.
take away from the actual story
Yeah.
itself. I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind if they kind of just leave it on a cliffhanger and it's just like, hey, you got 2 films, guys. We're done. Like, you know what I
Well,
mean? It'd
and
be
it-
like, man, that's crazy,
the
but
first one-
I respect it.
The first
Yeah.
one
rather than run itself into the floor or
As-
start losing, like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Continuity,
Yeah.
just fizzle out of ideas. I'd rather it go out on a high note, and I feel like this is the
Yes.
opportunity to where it actually could go out on a high note.
Yeah, Kage
If they do it right.
mentioned, Kage mentioned earlier about, the fact that this movie doesn't really explain a whole lot about how everything started
Mm-hmm.
with it. I feel like that if they don't explain it in two, that could
that's an
really,
angle.
that could be their angle for a third, is either a prequel to
Just like
show
Quiet
like where,
Place.
I agree.
right, to show like where it started,
Yep.
or how it started. But other than that, I mean, really, you don't want to kill something that's got a good solid, audience. Like, don't make 8 movies of it just because you
Right.
can. Like, just go ahead and leave it as
You're
this was
ruining the
great.
overall quality by
Right.
oversaturating.
Right. The trying to stretch out a story that, for all we know, this was based off of like a short story.
It is short film.
Yeah.
Okay, short film. Okay, so there
Laura
you go.
hasn't slept.
Right. So, and again, we talked about how it's a psychological thing. So it's really not that hard of a stretch, especially when you look into some of the creepy things that come out of psych wards as far as the notes and the stories and actual factual things where people did some really terrible things to others or to themselves out of things like sleep deprivation and just general psychosis, neuroses and whatever. But in the case of this particular film for 2, I am excited to see Smile 2. I think it will be an interesting take because, again, we mentioned how it's going to be, a larger group of potentially affected people, and it'll be interesting to see how they tackle that as well because we've only ever seen it in the first one at a time. So now we're going to see if they're going to do multiple people at a time or if they're just going to stick with one person at a time.
Right. Yeah, awesome. I think that's pretty good.
It's
Pretty good dialogue there.
and it stars the only notable star I know in it is Naomi Scott, and for those that don't know, she played Princess Jasmine in the live action Aladdin. She also played the Pink Ranger in the
Power Rangers film.
In the Power Rangers film.
The reboot.
Yeah, which I really liked. I'm really upset. Sorry. I gotta go off on this for a second.
I actually rewatched that the other day.
Yeah.
Just to give it, because we were talking about it, and I was like, well, I really didn't care for it the first time because of
out.
how dark it was.
Get out. I liked it because it was dark.
Right, and like I said, we talked about that before, about how dark it seemed compared to the original TV show
Right.
and movie that they did. And, I rewatched it. I liked it a little bit better than the first time, but there's a lot of things that
I
didn't
liked
care
it.
for.
I liked it because it was different, because it was darker, because it's so easy. They could have easily just went the 90s route and made it hokey for 20-somethings posing as teenagers and special effects. Let's just throw that out there. Let's put Michael B. Jordan. Let's put all these AAA actors. They could have easily done that, but they put a bunch of people that I don't know who they are. And at the time, I didn't know who Naomi Scott was or any of the other Power Rangers. And then we got Stranger Things, and then I was like, oh, that's the guy. That's the
popping
guy.
up.
That's the guy. That's the only one I recognize.
Right.
But then the little cameo with Jason David Frank and what was her name? Who played the Pink Ranger? Amy Jo Johnson.
Yep.
They had her in there, and I was like, okay, they allude to the Green Ranger story, and they just never did it.
Right.
So that was disappointing. But as far as seeing Naomi Scott in those 2 films that I know of, I was like, okay, I'm interested. And it took me a minute because like she normally has long black hair,
Right.
and like I was like, why does this girl look familiar? and it's like short hair, dyed blonde. And then I looked it up. I was like, oh,
That's
okay.
why.
So this is going to be my third film seeing her in it.
Yeah,
so,
this movie looks good, man. Looks really
yeah,
good.
she's the star of it.
And I think the release date, they picked out a good release date for this thing.
October 17th?
Yeah, it's October 17th,
Falls right in the
18th.
realm of
It's
horror,
perfect.
yeah.
That's like great. So yeah, definitely gonna be in theaters to watch that. And guys, when that movie does release, we will be having a full review of it in depth. So yeah, very exciting. Another trailer that came out was The Penguin, HBO Max series that's gonna be coming out this fall. I want to say it's coming out either between October and December, but it's definitely going to be in the fall. Like the trailer, looks awesome. It's a continuation of the events of the Batman from 2022, guys. If you haven't seen that, go watch that as well. I'm sure most people have seen that. It looks like it's a direct correlation with that. So
Still Colin Firth?
Colin
not
Farrell,
Colin
yeah,
Farrell, sorry.
Colin Farrell.
Colin
Yep,
Farrell.
Colin Farrell, still the Penguin. It looks literally like Batman 1.5. And so it's just going to be a TV show kind of going into the underbelly of what happens into Gotham after he kind of takes over.
Now, do you think that they're trying to...
Because he takes over for a bit there.
Well, we
Because
know
Falcone's dead, so.
we know that like late 2010, I think it was, is when you had Gotham, the TV show, come out, which is supposed to be young Bruce Wayne, kind of navigating and learning the ropes and the seedy underbelly of Gotham. And they added characters that weren't there in the original comics, which I know some people did not care for. But you know, it was still another way to kind of see a different side of Batman without there being Batman yet.
Right.
So, do you think that that's what you kind of get with the Penguin? Is you think
It's going to be mostly focused on just the Penguin and his dealings.
Oh, okay.
It really looks
Yeah.
like the Penguin's rise to prominence now, honestly, and his rise to power in Gotham. I want to actually know if they even allude to Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman in this. Maybe they go into what's going on with her. Because, you know, at the end of Batman, they kind of just go their separate ways. But I don't think there's going to be too many references of Bruce Wayne in this. I'm sure he's going to be around, especially within the dialogue, but I don't expect to see Robert Pattinson really show up like
Pop
this.
up anyway.
I'm not going to be
They
surprised
want
if
us-
he does show up. Maybe it could even be something, a scene they take for the Batman that was a deleted scene and they kind of just insert it in there. Because if you
Or
look at the
even just a
trailer,
cut
this
from the
this
movie.
right, this trailer is really shot like the Batman film. So that's what kind of grabbed me. I've
Yeah.
heard some people sit here and argue about, oh, it doesn't look as good, but it's still solid. It still looks good. It's a direct continuation from the film. Very excited about it.
And I think it's
Kage, did you watch that trailer?
I did.
Okay, what did you think?
I think it's pretty good. I enjoyed, and I'm surprised that I enjoyed Robert Pattinson's Batman. It was dark. It was serious. I didn't think. I'll be honest. I was just like, Twilight guy, Batman. but then I remembered I saw Tenet, and that movie. I was like, okay. He was good in that movie, and that was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. He proved to me that he can do dark, serious, edgy, and him as Batman, I was like, well done, well done. If this series does well, I imagine it serves kind of as a promotion or as a way to keep the Batman, Robert Pattinson Batman, in people's minds.
Yep.
You know, and it's just like when they announced the sequel.
Yeah,
doing a part.
they're working on the sequel.
There's-
I think it's kind of in limbo of when it's coming out. I've heard 2025, and then I've heard 2026. So
Okay, so
not
it's
100%
kinda-
sure
so
when
it-
it's coming
it
out.
is
It's
out
happening.
there.
Has to. Yeah.
It's out there, it's happening, so until that comes out and everything, I think this is going to kind of keep that in people's minds based on the success of it. So I'm rooting for it, and I'm definitely going to be watching it when it
Are we
comes out.
thinking like 8 episodes, probably? I mean,
Because
it seems like,
it's supposed to
I'm
be a
gonna say
mini.
10.
It's
Oh, you
supposed to
think
be a
10?
mini series. It's just.
Well,
it
so
could
it could
be
be
under
a-
10 though.
yeah, it could
you
be.
might
If
be
it's a
on it.
mini-series, it
might
could
be
be
5.
6.
Yeah, 5
Yeah.
or 6. And the way we're going now with TV shows, it seems like they're shortening either
They
the
are.
length that the show runs or the amount of episodes.
Right.
One of the two.
Yeah.
But
Like
yeah.
even short running shows, like 30-minute episode type shows, even those are, you know, it's very rare to see like a 26 episode.
Yeah, that's over with.
24, 26 episode show anymore. I mean, they're still putting them out for like anime, but that's really the only ones that are still doing it. So, I understand.
Did you watch this trailer, Buttons?
I did not.
Yeah, go ahead and watch that. I
Yeah.
think you like it.
Oh, so
Well,
what do you got? What's up? What do you got?
I was just gonna say, I still have always been like, it's got to be Danny DeVito.
Oh, yeah, 8 episodes.
Danny DeVito,
8
why
episodes,
are you not the
bud.
Penguin?
8 episodes.
8 episodes. Okay.
So it's gonna, we're looking at 8 episodes on HBO Max. I imagine each episode is gonna be an hour. at
Something
least.
good to watch in the
That'd be-
fall.
Yeah. Again, that universe was so rich. They did a very good job.
Oh, yeah.
This is gonna,
This is gonna open up the universe.
it's gonna open up the universe, but it should be noted, everyone. Remember, as the name implies, it is a focus on the Penguin.
Correct.
It's not Gotham 2.0. It's not Two-Face and all this stuff. I mean, I hope that there's mention of the other
If they
villains.
tie it to the movie, they might very well end the series with a little nod to whoever the big bad
Like
will be in the next movie.
But I'll turn it on its head. The big bad. Okay, this is going to be showing the Penguin, his story, his universe, and the big bad to him is
Bruce Wayne.
bingo. So I would
Well-
imagine he's gonna be. I don't think he's gonna make an appearance, but I do think there's gonna be stories.
Right.
There's gonna be mentions of the
course.
Batman. There's gonna be. He's gonna kind of be a shadow. He's going to be mentioned. He's going to be heard about. There's going to be evidence. Oh, the Batman was here, or the Batman is coming, or whatever.
Or
And
he's
maybe
really messing with my business.
merely messing
For
with my
sure.
business, especially with Falcone out of the picture
Yep.
as a character. So
The
I
reason-
imagine the last episode maybe could have something like that.
Well, the reason why I say the next big bad is only for the sense of a lot of the times in the Batman movies, we see not just one villain, but multiple villains.
Right.
And in the case of the Batman with Robert Pattinson, the Penguin didn't play like the big evil character. Like, he was obviously bad, but he wasn't like the main evil character.
I thought it was.
Yes and no. Like, he definitely, he was in there a lot, but I
He
feel
was
like
a co-bad guy.
yeah, he was more of, it was not just him. It was him and multiple characters. So the only reason why I say that is because in this one, I feel like if they end it where he's made an alliance or made a partnership with another villain within that realm, that's what I mean. Is
Okay.
like, they're going to lead it into, it would be interesting if they did this. If they lead it into the next Batman movie where at the end of this series, he's made a partnership with one or two, maybe, other villains, and they're going to gang up on the Batman.
Yeah.
So that would be a good way for them to tie and keep it relevant and keep people interested in what the next movie would be about.
Sure.
I think we had a pretty cool dialogue on that. Watch that trailer, Buttons. I want to hear what you think about that when we come back to the podcast, especially as we get closer to the actual debut of the show, or I should say
Right.
premiere of it. Guys, last topic. Let's talk about everything being a TV series now.
Yeah.
As we well know, Star Wars has something out right now.
Oh,
I don't
boy.
know what series this is for them as far as numerically how many TV
last
series.
one?
I want to say there's been like at least 6 Star Wars TV series, correct?
Yeah,
Like at least.
Well, I'm pretty sure based on how things are going, it's probably going to be the last Star Wars series.
Oh, they're
That-
gonna keep
that's-
going. It's not
There-
over
yeah.
yet.
Oh, let's
guys.
beat that dead horse.
So we
All
got
right.
we got
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Batman. So we got the Penguin coming out in the fall.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors of a Blade Runner
Yeah.
series. I sent
Yep.
an article to you guys about that. I want to hear what you think about that. And then obviously we have Dune Prophecy coming
Right.
out in HBO Max as well
They
in
have
the fall.
We have already the spinoff for HBO's Game of Thrones with the House of Dragon.
Right. What do you
Oh,
guys think
yeah.
about that?
Now-
Do you feel like that waters down the product when it comes to the cinematic experience? Because I've talked to Kage about this, and I said it does, depending on how they present the product and if the product is good. If the product is good and they don't water it down, and you can kind of have it be a filler block in between a big cinematic experience, then that works. if you do a lot of the stuff that Star Wars is doing right now, it kills all interest in anything that will come out in theaters. So what do you guys think about that? I feel like the Penguin is going to be great for Batman. I don't feel like they're going to water it down. I feel like it's going to keep people interested. And like Kage said, I think it's going to open up the universe, and we're going to be able to see more of what's going on in that realm without Batman being the main focus. But it's still going to keep you interested in the Batman. Dune Prophecy, same thing, but we're actually going thousands of years before the Paul Atreides stuff that
Right.
actually we
10,000
saw.
years.
10,000 years before the Paul Atreides events in
That's the
Dune
one,
Part 1 and 2.
Power of the
Right.
Rings of Power. Rings
Right.
of Powers did the same thing, where it's like 10,000
Right.
years before the events of.
Blade
It's-
Runner is still fresh. I don't know what spin they're going to take on Blade Runner. Personally, I don't want to see a Blade Runner show. I feel like Blade Runner needs to stick to cinematic experiences. I feel like I got enough from Blade Runner 1 in 2049 as well.
Yeah.
I don't really know where they're going with this. Maybe they could focus on Deckard's daughter, but I'm not 100% sure. You know what I mean? Because if you watch Blade Runner 2049, folks, they basically show that she's like the architect of the future now. All of her memories are being implanted into the replicants. So she's, I'd say at this point, maybe the most powerful person in that world. So I wonder what they do with that. Do they focus on that? Do they go in a different direction? Do they try to have a bridge story in between the events of Blade Runner 1 and 2049? I don't know. But I think it's going to be interesting. I'd rather see Blade Runner in theaters, cinematic experience, rather than them put out a TV show. I don't know how that's going to work out for that story. Not trying to shoot it down, but we'll see what happens with that. Star Wars, like I said, we've talked about it. It's a train wreck at this point in time. Penguin, I think, will do well. Dune Prophecy, I think, will do well. I think there's some things in Dune Prophecy I want to see them do. The trailer looked decent enough. Doesn't look bad. Looks like the quality's still there. I just want to see how strong that story is, and I want to see if they can actually tie in some other things and keep people interested. Kage, what do you think about all this? And then we'll hit buttons.
Yeah, so I have an interesting take on Dune Prophecy, okay? I'm a big Dune fan, from the miniseries on Sci-Fi to
Oh,
Children
we know,
of
bud.
Dune. Yeah, I'm really big on that. I can talk about that all day long, and I've played Dune games. So I loved Part 1. I loved Part 2. I've read the book. Well, I've read Dune, the first Dune. I've read it 2 or 3 times now in my life. I still gotta finish reading the rest of the book series, just because I have ADHD.
Guys, I know it doesn't sound impressive to say you read it 2 or 3 times within your life, but this is like a 900-page book.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's a good thing to bring up, because I am not, me personally, I'm not a big reader. The most reading I ever did in my younger days was Goosebumps. Don't judge. I'm getting smiles across the table here.
Those run about 120 to 160
Yeah,
pages.
and there were no pictures, but
There was beautiful cover art. I don't know what you're
oh yeah,
talking about.
okay, fine, you
And
got me there.
occasionally you had the little cardstock ones in the middle that were pictures, the colored pictures.
Okay, you got me there. Yeah, so like Goosebumps, like that was my reading, but like as I got older, Dune is a huge and a very dense read. You have to read it multiple times because it gives you so much lore. Okay, but with Dune Prophecy, I think this is going to be the first time we've seen well, I shouldn't say first time because we have the other books with the expanded universe, but we're leaving behind.
For those
Paul
who have
Atreides.
not, for those who have not read the books.
Yeah. So this movie's going to be following 10,000 years before the Harkonnen and Atreides beef. Basically, it's going to be focused on the Bene Gesserit. So it's going to be interesting how that does, both lore-wise and both just how audiences are going to receive that. I'm curious. They have me because it's Dune.
Right.
Okay, but I am a little worried because it isn't going to be Paul Atreides. Because when you say Dune, that's the story, the Fremen, the Messiah, that whole epic space opera is what we're used to.
Right.
We're kind of going in no man's land right now because we have 6 Dune books, I want to say, in total, and this isn't even following that. Like, they're going off their own, this is going off the rails, doing their own thing. and that's not to say I think it's going to be bad, but I am concerned, I guess,
Wow.
as a fan.
Interesting.
But I'm going to watch it because it has Dune attached to it. I
Thoughts
still
on
like
the
that
Blade Runner
universe.
show? Even though we don't have much info about it, sounds pretty fresh
It's
as far as information that's come out.
Yeah, it sounds pretty fresh. I won't lie to you, I've never been a very big Blade Runner fan.
Fair.
Both of the original and the remake. I have watched them, and it didn't really do anything for me as much as Dune has, as much as Aliens, the Alien franchise has. Like, when you say good sci-fi, like, those are my go-tos in terms of, like, the 90s, early 2000s, and now. That's what I go to. Blade Runners has always been kind of weird.
Now,
Buttons, what you got on this?
well, I just had a quick question because it made me think of something.
Sure.
Now, Neff, when did the original Blade Runner, the very first one, come out?
I think it was like 1986.
Right. And Kage,
Guessing.
when did the original Dune come out?
The movie?
The movie, yeah, the first. Since the book, but movie.
The first dumpster fire came out in 1984.
So that's what I find. That's what I find very interesting because
Blade Runner 1982. Sorry.
right, and so 82, 84. So right around the same time, you have these huge, like world-creating kind of movies, and Dune. Majority of people did not care for.
Yeah.
Blade Runner created it was not a wholly original world, but it was a completely different realm because it's set so far into the future and there's all kinds of other things
But-
going on that have reshaped the world. But with both of them, I feel like there's a very deep amount of information that you have to process in order to understand the story. Now, with the newer Dune movies, you cut out a lot of the depth that the book goes into, in my opinion. Some of the characters are very different. Some of the information that they give you as to their motivations and the motivations that drive the story forward are different as well. But it's not as noticeable for people who have not read the books. And I
sure.
feel like that was a positive thing for Dune. For Blade Runner, however, you have the first one that comes out, and it's very hard to understand at first. I feel like that's one that I had to watch multiple times in order to really understand the depth that goes into it. It's because, you have a simple story on the outside where you're like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what's driving the story.
Also based on a book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Right.
Whoa.
So,
Anyway, keep going.
Well, we already know a lot of the times that movies are based off of books.
Right.
So I feel like, I would almost say, like, for people who enjoy books more than movies, when it comes to seeing this creation of somebody's imagination or how they basically see that world after they've read a book, that interpretation, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to try and make it appeal to as many people as possible because the way I interpret something is going to be very different from how somebody else interprets it. So, with Dune, I feel like the latest ones are great. It appeals to a much larger audience than probably the original movie did. Not only visually, but also, the information that they're trying to put forth, because there's a lot of information in that. In Blade Runner, I feel like it's probably the same. I haven't read the book, but I have seen both the movies. So from that perspective, I feel like you do kind of want more information, that background information, that might be something that you're only ever going to get by reading the book.
Yeah.
And it
Good point.
might, put some of the pieces together a little bit more and make it a more enjoyable experience when you're watching the movie.
Very
Because
good
you're like,
point.
oh, here's characters, here's events, here's this information that kind of gives you that lore, that background. As far as the topic that we were trying to focus on, you know, do we keep making these movies or do we put them in series? Because as we both mentioned, you know, these are books. So, and in some cases, a series of books. But do we want a TV show series or do we want an actual just a 2.5 hour block of a movie that summarizes everything and says, here's the story? Honestly, we talked about this before. I know as far as cramming too much into a 1.5 hour or 2.5 hour movie, and
Yeah.
you're like, I'm so lost because they cut out too much information
Right.
or they tried to condense it, and so you're like, wait, who was that character? I thought that was the other person. Where did this person come from?
Right.
Yeah.
And who the hell is that chick back there? Because she was not there at the beginning of the story, and now she's integrated, and she's like, I was here the whole time.
And then when you do that, you can't develop characters. It's
Right.
just like
Yeah.
placeholders now,
But-
just to get through the plot. It's like,
But like when it comes to dense, really dense stories like Dune, I just said it. I feel like a miniseries is better
Right. And that's what
because
I'm
you have
getting
that you have that flexibility. I
to tell more of the story.
to tell more of the story. And again, it's important when I say flexibility, I don't mean flexibility to deviate from the lore to
Or
deviate.
stretch
I
it
don't-
out into 7
or-
seasons when 2
Yeah,
seasons
I
would
don't
do.
mean that because Dune is such a dense story that there's a freaking encyclopedia in the back of the actual novel. There is a map of Arrakis. Like you can deep dive as much as you want to go. Okay, if you want to wear the floaties and stay in the shallow end, fine. But if you want to go deep, let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes, folks. You know, you
Right.
can do that with Dune. There's more. Is there more Dune books than Blade Runner?
I'm not
Yes, Blade Runner's only from a short story.
right.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right, there you go.
Right.
It's
But
not really a short story. It is a book, but it's one book.
Yeah, one
Okay.
book.
The thing to note here as well is that we had Dune 1, Part 1, Part 2, and then we have Messiah that's in process of being made. And I surmise that this series is kind of it's going to keep Dune in the forefront of people's minds. It's our little appetizer, if you will, to hold us over until
Just as we talked about with Penguin.
right. It's exact same deal. And while we're waiting for the next Batman movie, we got the Penguin. While we're waiting for the next Dune movie, we got Dune Prophecies.
But something to take into consideration as we're broaching this subject about whether or not, you know, we want movies or TV series. We don't have a Lord of the Rings, and we don't have a even in the case of
We had a Lord of the
the
Rings
Game of
series.
Thrones, another movie. We don't have another movie slated to come out.
Oh,
so in
yeah,
this
we
case,
do, bud.
an-
Oh, yeah, they're
What-
doing it.
What are they? What are they? What
They're
do
gonna
they
do
have
another
to
Lord of
do?
the Rings.
But what is it?
It's going to be about, what's that weird character?
Schmeagol.
I'm not,
Wait,
yeah, it's going to be about him. It's going
Who?
to be 2 films focused on him.
Schmeagol.
So
My
Andy
brain-
Serkis is going to be filming it. They got Peter Jackson as a producer. Warner Brothers is going to be funding it.
Okay,
So
so
they're
it's
going to
gonna
be doing that.
prequels.
So it's going to be 2026. I think they're going to have that. But so
Okay.
sorry, bud.
Well, okay. The point that I was going to try and make, I guess, which doesn't work in this scenario, but was along the lines of, you know, are we stretching out stories that are existing because we don't have any more material to throw into theaters? Or are we, you know, again, Disney would be the example of this with all of the Star Wars, you know, shows that they're doing. Could they make just some movies out of these shows and just be like, hey, here's a movie about Boba Fett, or here's a
Well-
movie about Mandalorian, and they could have had a second movie. Versus
And
these.
by the way, not to cut you off, they are doing a Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
Oh, okay. Well, see, there you go.
That's
Could we-
that's
could
their
we-
move now.
Could we just
That's
do
their
a
move
movie
now.
as
So-
opposed to doing this whole?
They're gonna sell a lot of toys.
We
more
gotta-
toys, merchandise.
We have
I see
to.
what you're saying, though.
I think we have to kind of address the elephant in the room, kind of talking about Star Wars. As everyone knows, we have Star Wars Acolyte out right now. It's not doing well. It's not doing well at all. I think
lot
it's
of them have not done
I think
that
it's-
well.
I think it's rated the worst Star Wars anything
That's
ever.
a pretty low bar to set too.
And that's a pretty low bar to set because even if you have you have the diehard Star Wars fans, and then you have the casual fans that are like, oh, I like this is a good time. Oh, I like Baby Yoda. So you got people watching Mandalorian just because of that. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not get Disney Plus for Mandalorian. I actually got it
But
for
you
Gargoyles.
watched it.
I did watch it. I did.
I'm glad you brought up Gargoyles because we're going to talk about something after this podcast. We need something from Gargoyles. That'd be sick.
Yes. Well, no, because
please
when
do
Disney
not do
Plus,
a live action Gargoyles. Do not
I
do
don't
it.
think live action will work, but even if they did it animated and brought it back,
That would-
man,
But that will
would
not
be awesome.
stop them from trying.
Of course, they will try.
they will try
anything.
They will try. But I got
Quit trying
Disney
to ruin
Plus
my
because I
childhood.
found out that at the time that the entire Gargoyle series, because I'm all about nostalgia.
Yeah.
I think Darkwing Duck is on there.
Yeah.
Anybody remember? Not DuckTales. Well, they did butcher. They did butcher that. I don't like the new one. I saw. I was like, no. I watched one episode. I was like, no. But
Back to Star Wars.
back to Star Wars. Yeah, Acolyte is not doing very well. You don't really have to look far. God, what can I say about that? Because here's the thing I heard is that they were originally planning a new trilogy of films based on Rey, the character Rey.
Right.
And this has been doing so poorly that I heard they canceled that. 3 projects shelved now. And now Disney is kind of running damage control, trying to figure out not how they can save Acolyte, but
think
how
they're
they
to
can
save Star Wars.
save Star Wars. No, it really has gotten to that because Star Wars is as a part of American culture as Batman, as Superman, as American Pie, baseball. You know what I mean? There's just certain things you don't mess with. And unfortunately, that's exactly what's going on. So Disney has to do some damage control to figure out how the heck to save the Star Wars franchise, because that's pretty big to cancel 3 films.
Well, and like you said, though, it's one of those things that as they release this, these projects, and they're sitting there going, oh, well, that one didn't perform so great, but we already had all these other ones, in production, post-production, ready to be released. However, because they had it all slated out. They're like, this one's going to come out, then this one's going to come out, then this one's going to come out. And with this, I think they finally reached a stopping point where they said, look, why do we want to put into production 3 more movies when they haven't liked the last 3 shows that have come out? And again, Disney throws a lot of money into these projects. I kind of feel like that is their flaw with doing this, is not just the fact that they're diluting the brand, but they're throwing way too much money at it, hoping that it'll be a success. And they don't need to.
Well, Disney
They just need
owns-
good writing. They
Oh,
just
yeah.
need good writing and
Absolutely.
halfway decent acting, because people can more easily forgive, kind of mediocre acting than they can a bad story.
Yeah, you can have a whole AAA cast, but if your writing is crap,
Right,
there
and
you-
that's
they,
what
they
I'm
can
trying to
the
say.
actors and actresses can only carry that so much. If your
Right.
material is garbage,
So I guess the gist of this conversation is Star Wars is writing the blueprint on what not to do when you
they're
do a
right.
series.
Well, hold on. Star Wars. Disney is writing the book on what not to
Disney,
do
Star
because
Wars, yeah.
Disney folks, remember Disney. Disney.
I'm using
owns-
them as the IP. like I would use
Well, right.
Batman as an IP. I wouldn't say Warner Brothers.
Well,
I'd just say Batman.
Disney owns Marvel too. Marvel movies,
and they're
Marvel
in
and
the
Star
ground,
Wars.
too.
So isn't it funny that they're both in the ground and they're both owned by Disney? Disney, get together, guys. Get it together. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like, what's going on here? You're destroying two of the most biggest franchises in America.
I think honestly, Disney just needs to take a step back from adult content and focus on their main base, which is kids. They
Take
need
it back to the root.
They need to go back to kids. And if they want, like, I know we've talked about it in the past, you know, the fact that Disney had its own spin-off production company that they threw adult films into that didn't have a Disney name, so that if they performed poorly, it wasn't with Disney, you know, thrown on top of the front cover of it, you know. So I feel like if they want to continue to put out, you know, product and all that, just kind of funnel that into another studio and let that be not Disney, because people, I think, are getting, you know,
Perception now.
yeah, people are
Disney
getting, oh, it's
again.
Disney. I don't want to.
Yep. I know what I'm
They're-
going to get.
Yeah, I don't.
I feel like Disney's suffering from the weight of their own success, so to speak.
Their brand is what
Their
it is.
well, their brand, because it's like Star Wars and Marvel, they're so big, we can't screw that up. But at the same time, what is most of their funding going to?
Right.
That's their biggest cash cows,
Even
and they're not doing
Pixar
well.
has not been performing
Yeah.
very well
Yeah,
lately.
you
I
brought
mean,
that up.
now we have Inside Out 2, which is a great thing for them for it to be doing this successful. But in the previous years, going back to COVID, that was really where you saw this decline of, you know, them not even showing enough faith in their own product. I mean, they were doing straight to streaming with a
Yeah.
lot of their movies. And I think, you know, maybe the part of that was to get more people to subscribe to Disney Plus. But at the same time, you know, when you don't show the same faith in your product to release it into theaters and make people actually, you know, pay the $40 or whatever they were charging for like Mulan into their Pixar brand, that is a bad move in my opinion, because Pixar, that gets a lot of kids. That gets, you know, like I said, that goes back to my point of
Moral of the
get
story,
your
focus
kids.
on your base.
Yeah.
And they're not focused on their base, which is
Right.
why we see Star Wars the way it is now, and Marvel. With that being said, very good podcast. We hit a lot of cool topics. Very, very good conversation that we had there, guys. Anything else you want to add before we take this one out?
I think we're good.
No, I think that pretty much does it for us.
Like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell for notifications, and stay tuned for another episode of the Popcorn Square Podcast. We always have great things coming your way. We're definitely going to be giving you A Quiet Place 2 in-depth review when we watch that this weekend coming up. Like we said, guys, that comes out June 28th. If you're interested in that, it's going to be in theaters this upcoming weekend. We will have a review for you, and we'll be talking about a bunch of other things in the world of entertainment. With that being said, I am Neff signing off with
Kage.
and
Buttons.
be safe.